There you go. It's working. Welcome to Toolhouse, the podcast. I'm
Episode
Daniele, episode one of
7,
seven,
I think.
or the first episode of the new season.
Then right.
Oh,
It's the first episode after the preview day, right? So it is a new season.
it is a new season, the new beginnings. All right.
We
For those who don't know what preview day is a big dress rehearsal for what usually you'll have as what's called demo day. And so those events are full of investors. So you get to pitch for 2 minutes in a room full of investors, and that's your chance to shine. That's how you get usually great conversations, potentially checks, potentially introductions to better investors or more checks. And that's basically the beginning of you as a like serious VC funded company post acceleration or post friends and family around. And so we had one of those, um, and we'll talk about that more in detail with what happened. So we had ours on Thursday last week. So it's been a week, and it's been another very good, intense week. You know that when every day feels like a week, things are going pretty well. And so we'll talk about this. So Orlando, you were also in SF, how or in the Bay
Yeah,
Area or Silicon Valley,
Palo
um,
Alto.
Palo Alto. So your first impressions of pretty much everything leading up to preview day.
Yeah, so I mean, I had never been to Palo Alto proper, like like literally the core of Palo Alto where the office was. I think it was incredible to be able to meet everybody that I had only heard of or like seen their emails, and I had no real background. So like shaking those hands, seeing those smiles. Everybody was super nice. But also, yeah, like we worked pretty hard, like events every night, loads of networking, getting all these like cards, like business cards, and following up. And yeah, I mean, the peak was getting to Stanford, in my opinion, right? Like getting into the campus after a hard, I mean, honestly, I just, I didn't have to do the hard work. So Daniele, hat off to you for having to get on stage and you know having to rehearse that pitch, going through like all the mentors like Ali and Leonard and Clayton. Everybody was like giving us like little tips on how to improve that pitching. So I think that went really well, which, like I said, we ended up in Stanford, right? And Stanford was just like, whoa, like we're outside in this beautiful park with like salad, chicken, and salmon for lunch. It was incredible.
Let's let's
Um,
let's back up for a moment so that the audience can understand what happens in case we want to put this on YouTube and get a little bit of a hold. So the big day or the big evening was Thursday, where you get to pitch with other companies in front of investors. Your aim there is to get as many investors that are relevant to you to talk to you and then get a meeting with you eventually. What we did not know clearly, at least that night, was that only four of all these startups who will pitch that night were been selected for a pitch or an investor meeting, more so in Stanford, and we weren't really like I think we were focused on doing our job, which was delivering the best pitch possible out there. So it's not that we were fishing specifically for any objective, and that's why we were like very excited to have been selected. Like it's not we had any doubt, but we weren't optimizing necessarily for that thing. And it was great because we spent a ton of time in like networking with people. We got probably about like 20 different people we talked to and reached out to. And then on top of that, at the very end of the night, we were told, okay, congrats, you've been selected to pitch there and to talk to investors. And there were like another probably 24 investors. We had two groups of 12, and that was in Stanford. And Stanford, I mean, you might know that Stanford is one of the biggest campuses and South Africa colleges in the U.S. the setting was actually pretty sweet. It felt like Orlando mentioned. You walk in and we had the speech outside in a very sunny day, and it felt like explaining what the business was and making sure that investors could do two things: a, give you feedback on what can be done more, and maybe like walk out with some interesting conversations that would eventually lead to checks. So there were like very good things. For us, the good thing was that we got free food, we got a fantastic setting. It eased off all the pressure of really like wanting that check. I think that same day we got very good news that we received another check from an investor. So it was
Yeah.
like we were coming in very strong. We knew we won. We knew we had fantastic traction. It was like all the rest was just a gift, and we got the gift of feedback. Obviously, it's not that you end up with meaningful next steps from there, but we got a ton of things we know are working well with investors, and a ton of things that we can always improve coming into the next round.
Right.
So that was the setting around Stanford and how it came to be.
So I think something that we learned pretty early into the day on Thursday was that there was going to be a lot of people. Like, we were told by Clayton and the rest of the people in the office, like, oh, there's going to be like 30, 40, 50. But I think there were maybe like over 100 people who attended, including
Yeah,
like friends and guests, et cetera, et cetera. And so there was this, like, the challenge was to like talk to as many people as possible. And I think we did a pretty good job. I think if we go and look at Notion, there is a here we have a list. I don't know how we can count, but I can.
I can count it for you. I think it was
Yeah.
18.
And so basically figuring out like who's interested in AI, like specifically AI infrastructure, which is what we do, interested in understanding what everybody's thesis was. That was like the biggest, awakening for me. It's like everybody has a different thesis, right? Some people are like, oh, we want to invest in companies who are very, socially aware. Other people are investing in companies that are, like climate friendly. They have like very different perspectives, and all these investors, especially the ones who were at the Stanford VCU, I think it was called the VC University, they had very strong thesis. Now, I'm not going to go into details in some of the things I've heard. I'm not trying to, be political or anything, but it was very interesting how we would like automatically, be out of a
Yeah,
thesis based on who we are and what we do.
yeah.
So,
That's the very interesting thing about certain investment thesis. Like we're both like belong to the Italian community,
yeah,
and so it's easy for us to get the attention of investors whose thesis is to invest in Italian founders. But
that's
is,
true.
is that thesis strong enough for us? And what is the like given the thesis? What is the kind of relationship and value that the investor is going to bring to the table? So that is also one of the things that we need to figure out as entrepreneurs while we have all these conversations. And for me, coming into preview day on Thursday, my and to be honest, like the strategy since Toolhouse came to be was really to just deliver on strong traction and then explain um, what the idea, what the problem is in terms that can resonate with certain investors. Basically, the strategy you could call the strategy if you know, like we're growing, and those are the numbers. We have
Correct. Yeah.
endorsements. We
But
know that
there's more, right? There's
Cloudflare, yeah,
more.
we know the Grok and Cloudflare are already working with us and collaborating with us. So we have that endorsement. Now they have your attention. Here's what we're doing. And so the idea here is that given our strong traction, given the endorsement of big players in the market, if you know that this is a developer tool, this is a cloud infrastructure, this is a new stack for AI, um, if you know what this means, then you'll come talk to us, not the vice versa. And the goal there was achieved because apart from a few, I think most of the conversations we had were inbound. And all of our early investors and angels were inbound too. So
Yeah.
we didn't really reach out to people. And our strategy has been talk on LinkedIn and X about what we do, show the traction. Um, Investors will come, they want to learn more, and out of those who really get the business and the nature of what we're doing, they'll stick around and get a check in. So that's what happened also on like Thursday night, because we received a ton of attention, and for me the strategy was exactly that: go on stage, deliver a killer pitch, explain that we are growing faster, we had the team that can do this, and then wait. And we were kind of at the like side of the room, so it was also not easy to reach out to us, and there was like an additional barrier of entry that kind of played in our advantage, so that investors who really liked us would come. And we already knew one thing, that their investment thesis was already matching what we do. That meant that we got a ton of conversations with investors at least get the developer space or community built products, and that makes the conversation much easier. Obviously, we also found the investors who only believe in certain demographics. We also found like investors that don't match our demographic, just asking us, "Do you belong to that demographic?" No. Oh, sorry,
Yeah.
we only invest in
Yeah.
founders of that demographic. Like, what's the point there? Just like, um, I mean, maybe we can take that as a sign of interest there. But if the demographic is the only investment thesis, then I'm going to kind of figure out what is the value that you can bring other than that. Because like we need to build a global platform, and we can't really constrain ourselves in a specific region or demographic. Like the problem of a developer in the United States is going to be the same of a developer in Japan or in Spain or Italy. And so everybody needs to um, like understand that there's the opportunity is massive and global, and probably will go in and find pockets of growth in markets that are more ripe for this kind of problem, which is usually like US, North America, and then parts of Asia. But we'll see that as we all grow.
Yeah, and I mean, there's huge communities in, like, Mexico and Latin America,
Yeah.
like, younger developers who are really hungry, and they want to do really good. And looking in the Bay Area, I've seen there's been at least two or three companies from Brazil that are really strong and successful. And so you can think of the BRIC countries, like, right, like
Yeah.
Brazil and, well, Russia and
India. Yeah.
what else? India and China, right? So there's definitely, like, and yeah, like you said, all developers have the same kind of problems in maybe different flavors, but the same core issue, right?
Right.
Which is like writing code that works, deploy something that makes customers or users happy. That's kind of like the generic what's it called, like a mantra of a developer, right? Like, write code that works and make someone happy, right? So that being said, going back to the point of the thesis, I think there's this, like, separation between getting like endorsed because you fit a certain profile, and then getting endorsed because the VC fund or angel really truly understands what you're doing, right? I think there's this big difference. And so, even reading on some of those slide decks that were shared in Slack, on the 500 Slack, about, like, like, I think there was like a Mercury how to raise money deck that was shared. And it was like, focus on people that can support your business the first year or two, not only by giving you money, but they also can give you intros, they can advise you, they might have industry experience, et cetera, et cetera. So it's really important to like kind of balance both out. Like, yeah, it's nice to have money with, like, no strings attached, where, like, you're not going to be asked anything but to deliver on what you promised. And then there's going to be investors that are maybe more involved, who are, like, willing to do, like, intros or help you in other ways. And I think it's really important to have that balance, because there are going to be days, the dark days of entrepreneurship, where you don't know where to hit your head against, to, like, maybe break a certain number or whatever barrier life puts you in front of you, and then having those strategic, more involved investors are going to be, or is going to be, potentially what's going to help you get past those blockers. And I think that's something that if you have more generic investors, you might not get that. Like people, for example, who are like, oh, we invest in, I don't know, I'm making this up, people who wear gray t-shirts. Like we love people who wear gray t-shirts. We're gonna invest only in that. It's like, okay, this is great. I wear a gray t-shirt. Sure, give me your money, but like, am I going to be able to come back to you on the day where I need potentially, like, I don't know, help on passing my SOC2 compliance, or maybe I got banned from the App Store and I need to go through, right? Like instead, now if you have an angel that works, again, super random example, at Apple on the App Store, side, they can, like, move around and like unblock your access. Like this happened to some of my friends, like, it's like, oh, your app has been banned from the App Store. Now what? Like 90% of the people that don't have that connection, they are, pardon my French, they're effed up, right? Like they're probably going to have to fight for weeks to try and get their app restored. But having that connection, that investor that has that knowledge, those connections, that vertical makes a lot of sense. And yeah, and you can see that like there are people like that. I think we had a call like this week with this guy based in Austin from, I don't know if we are allowed to name drop here, but an old acquaintance of Daniele, who I think has a very good network of
Yep.
connections in the developer platform, developer tooling industry, which that would be great to have on our side.
Yeah, we'll,
So
we'll we'll drop the name when he becomes an investor, which may
correct.
happen
Yeah.
at some
So
point.
I didn't say
Yeah,
it.
yeah. We have an investor from Meta, and that is a great connection to also like the strategy part, but also think of what the insights we can get from a company that big that help us figure out how to position ourselves as a company, to us as a company, to be relevant to the future of AI, particularly to open weights AI. So imagine having that kind of help that way, plus the usage and the feedback and the input you get from customers, because we need to obviously talk to customers every day. We do that very gladly. Merge the two, and you get the right vision. Like if you know where the minds of developers are at today, and you know what the future state is going to be at,
Right.
then that's pretty good. And I think you get that by getting the right possible investors. Like when they say that entrepreneurship is not easy, those are probably the less like understood things. Those are the most overlooked aspects of being an entrepreneur. Like it's not that you go, you have a vision, and you cultivate this vision
Yeah.
on your own.
It's
You listen a lot. You surround yourself with the right people. You get advice, and you establish those relationships with people you want in your company, or as close as you can. That can also give you money. Money is almost like a byproduct of the
yeah,
entire
exactly.
relationship.
It is.
Yeah,
And that's perfect because, going back to, preview day and the next day at Stanford, it truly, like, there were people that I would say truly understood what we were doing. And then there were people that were very, like, they were interested, but they couldn't grasp things like developer platforms or, the technicalities of certain things. Like they just didn't have that knowledge. And so it was really hard to establish a way, like, like a common ground when you ask a question and you're like, hey, have you heard of, a developer platform such as whatever? And they're like, oh, no, not really. So basically, you don't have that foundation that you can build on. You don't have that common ground. You're almost like speaking two different languages and no Google Translate to help you out. And so that gets really complicated because then you have to start educating, which I think it's a huge part of what I guess our next quarter is going to be
Right.
about, or I guess this quarter is it's a lot about educating not only developers but also investors that are new to AI, LLMs, function calling specifically, and all this like new ecosystem of things that can be built in generative AI, right?
That's right.
So that was an eye opening. Usually I speak to people that breathe technology, and so they're usually up to speed. But once you go into that world of potentially, VC or angels that do understand technology, but not the newest stuff, and then you're like, this is a tough conversation to have. And it
Yeah.
feels bad because even they say we're not expert, like I don't really understand. And so it's like, well, you're probably not a fit then, no matter how hard we're gonna try. Like, yeah, we can give you our pitch deck, we can give you our investors notes, we can maybe even educate you, but it might just be a waste of time because there are a thousand other investors that actually get it. So maybe we should go and get those. Um, so that was
Yeah,
like a little eye-opening experience for
that
me.
to me was actually clear. I don't want to say from the beginning, but it became clear as soon as we started to figure out where our first money was coming from, and it was coming from people who get it. So when you raise the first money, obviously, um, your investor believe in you as a founder because you don't have traction. You have this theory, you have this thesis that the problem you've seen scales enough
Right.
to become a revenue generating thing, and you only have very early signs of success. For example, we talked to hundreds of developers who um, believed that this was a felt need, the same as we originally felt at the very beginning. That's it. So how do you go about then explaining in 30 minutes in a call with an investor exactly how you want to proceed? And so
Mm.
that's basically a shot in the dark for everybody. And that's why from the very beginning I didn't set up the company to start like broad conversations with pretty much everybody.
Mm.
Usually, most companies, and we might do this to a certain extent if needed, like, but most companies, when they raise money, they try to have a lot of conversations, like in the hundreds, with as many investors as possible, and then kind of have a funnel, and some will drop into this funnel where like maybe 1% of them, literally one or two investors, were going to give you are going to give you the money. So you need 100 conversations multiple times, 100 funds times maybe two, three, four times, only to see one or two succeed. So it's very time consuming. It takes a lot of energy. You're going to have complete different feedback because what an investor is going to look like um, is not a cookie cutter, templatized set of things. Every investor will have a way to look at your business in different ways through the lens of their thesis. Like maybe there's an investor who specializes in healthcare, and so maybe your solution could be sold to healthcare companies. Do you have an angle for that? And if you do not, your company, who is perfectly legitimate in say finance, is not going to receive funding from that investor, and you lose time because you basically cast a broad net on
Yeah.
all these investors. For us, it was the opposite. Let's show that developers know that this is a problem and developers are willing to pay. And so we started immediately before even having the product with a paid waitlist and a free waitlist. And the paid waitlist was yielding more signups than the free waitlist. From there, we started to build the product because obviously developers did want
They
access.
want it. Yeah,
Yeah.
they have the pain. They want it.
And yeah, at the point we started to start with signups, activity, and now we're seeing all these signs. The next step obviously is going to be revenue. At the point, we just had to signal that to investors and say, hey, we bumped into something developers are already willing to pay for. Help us extract even more revenue by giving us the money that can help us build a stronger product and a strong sales team where we can go and have those kind of conversations with larger businesses that can then fund most of our revenue. So that's the kind of
Yeah.
the kind of setup that we had. One thing we also noticed from the session in Paradise in Stanford on Friday was the fact that we need to communicate clearly and in very simple terms. Now, my background is in developer relations. I thought I could do that for a living, but what you do in developer relations is really translating technical terms to like simpler ways, but it's still technical to technical. Maybe it's more technical to less technical, and you don't have really a need to necessarily to explain more technical into like simple real life
Yeah.
examples.
Like the metaphors, right?
The metaphors, exactly. So um and the good thing that you were there actually for, I was really like breaking down those things into metaphors, and like there were a couple of things we explained on what Toolhouse do, or what Toolhouse does as a company. So one was the components, like the car brakes or the tires metaphor. And in Toolhouse, like maybe let's play this game. Like I'll explain in very technical terms, and you give the metaphor for everybody,
All
because
right. I
I think
love
you
that.
need to get credit for that. Um,
It's okay. Okay.
so what Toolhouse does is a platform where developers can come and build, but instead of building code themselves, they have all the building blocks necessary to equip their LLMs with sophisticated experiences like memory, code interpreting, uh, ability to send the email, the write, and so on and so forth. So developers just build the the end user, the UI and the tone of voice for the assistants, but then everything else is already managed by us. Now, that's like overly technical for an investor. What would be the investor friendly metaphor for that?
I think the investor friendly version of this, it's like you own a Ferrari and you feel like you can improve certain parts of your car, make it more personalized, or just make it run better. And so you can take out the stock tires, the stock wheels. You can like maybe wrap your Ferrari with a different color, maybe replace the sound system. At the end of the day, when someone sees you drive, you're still driving the Ferrari. It's your Ferrari, but it's customized and improved to run better because of the changes you've done. And those parts that you put into the Ferrari that are, personalized by you, we sell you those. We're basically the pay and spray shop from Grand Theft Auto, or the pimp my ride of Exhibit for AI infrastructure.
Pimp
So
my
something like
AI.
that, I would say.
Oh my god, pimp my AI.
Pimp
Quick,
my. I mean, that was a big show in the '90s. I mean,
I
Pimp My
know.
Ride.
Quick, rebrand the company. Pimp my AI. All right. Yeah, the other part was a good
I think
question.
everyone has. Have you seen that show before?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not insane then.
No. I also live in Oakland. There's a ton of
All
like
right, perfect.
pimped up cars, and it's such a great show to see just like down the streets. So yeah, the other part, now investors get it. Now investors know, but then they can ask you, well, why can't developers build their own tires too, as well as owning the Ferrari? They don't want to work. What's there? Like, why should developers trust you or use you instead of building it themselves?
Yeah,
And the technical explanation here is that if you're a developer, you don't want to care about this, because you need to read the documentation, you need to figure out how the API works, you need to write the prompts for all these functions, you need to do the connection between your code and the LLM code, and then you need to repeat that times the number of LLM you had to use. Again, this is the technical explanation. An investor will be like, you're too technical,
yeah.
that's fantastic, let me understand more. And so that's where the metaphor comes.
The metaphor for this one was, do you drive a car? And the investor said, yes, of course I drive a car. And I said, do you change the oil in your car by yourself? And the investor said, no, I take it to a shop. Why would I do it myself? I was like, exactly. You don't want to get your hands dirty. You don't want to waste your time. You might not even have the tools to open that little box with the oil is, or have the oil. So why would a developer want to change the oil him or herself? They want to use something that's already out there. They can just quickly get it done, with a couple of lines of code and problem solved. And that's the metaphor for the composability of software engineering.
And that's where they open their checkbooks. So that's how it works. But and that's very interesting because like it shows a couple of things. Like there's the expertise, there's also the ability to bring investors along for the ride, and it all like boils down into this like simple communication points. Like people understand that easily, and when it comes to talking to investors, that also makes a ton of difference. So that's exactly what we try to do more and more and communicate them more and more clearly. I think our kind of traction and numbers are a very good way to corroborate our conversations, or also to have very good first conversations, and then more and more you act as almost like an advisor to those investors to help them make the right decisions. And so you need to be clearly communicating and making sure that they understand what you're up to. So yeah, that's
That's
that's the
perfect.
recap from past week, and the road ahead is obviously very long, but I think it was a good debrief and a good way to really making sure you understand what goes on in the mind of both entrepreneurs and investors when it comes to this kind of very important conversations. Nice.
Perfect. Do we have any updated numbers that we want to show, or are we gonna keep those under, share them later, maybe in private, or
We'll share them later in private. What if this is going to be on YouTube?
okay,
Or I can tell people is actually we're growing at the usual rate, at the usual pace, and we actually had basically one less week in the month to make the numbers grow, because we had all the preparation for preview day, and that took the entire
yeah,
week. So if we had one more week, we'll probably be at a even higher like growth rate. Um, that said, we have events happening this week, next week, the week after, like in
yeah,
October, and so we're going to see this increase in signups. Like
yeah,
every time we stick our head out, developers are ready with their credit cards to sign up, and that happened on Tuesday. It happened even yesterday. Today we see some more signups. Um,
yeah.
it keeps happening. Yeah,
If anyone is in Austin and wants to come see me present Toolhouse live from the Googleplex, it will be in a week from now, so on the 24th, in the evening, 6 p.m. And I will share the link in the description. No, I'm just thinking. I don't know.
I
Maybe,
am.
yeah, right. Or maybe up there, or I don't know. But that's gonna be exciting. It's, I guess, the first time me presenting in Austin at an actual meetup, like AI meetup. So one of many, and yeah, looking forward. We have much more going on next week, webinars, et cetera, et cetera. So hopefully we will keep the momentum going. I mean, I'm
stay
sure we will.
stay tuned. There's going to be a ton of things on the Luma as well. We always post our upcoming events. We're going to be at the Agentic AI Hackathon in San Francisco on the 21st and the 22nd. Then we have a summit on the 23rd, also in San Francisco. Then we have um, Grok and Snowflake in the East Bay in California on the 24th. And then there's going to be more to come. Then obviously Orlando already mentioned events. So those are our next immediate engagements. Come see us. Get our offer, $1 for 150 Toolhouse credits. Grab it while it's hot, and from there, you can join the community. You can start building awesome apps, and if you end up building something very good, we want to know, because we want you on this podcast.
Let's
All
see
right,
if this works. Let's see. There you
there
go.
you go.
I
All
love
right.
it.
Next time, this should be from the first second we go live.
Yeah,
Join the
we
Toolhouse
can
family.
edit this. It's fine. All right.
Amazing. I was
Amazing.
all the time we had for this week. Thank you for listening,
Tuning in.
watching, tuning in, and we'll see you next time.